We open with a man driving at night, the neon lights of the futuristic city streaking past him, until a semi-truck crashes into him from the side, almost killing him. But luckily the airbag deploys just in time to save his life, changing the rest of the man's life forever. In the 90s, a band recorded an album that depicted a dystopian world filled with rampant consumerism, capitalism, social alienation, and political unease. Sound familiar? OK Computer by Radiohead was critically acclaimed when it came out and is now considered one of the best albums of all time. Themes of mortality and our dependence on technology like the airbag are all throughout this album, giving a preview into the mood of 21st century life. And it was also responsible for causing a shift in British rock away from the bright and catchy Britpop towards more atmospheric alternative rock. Because of this, it was even added to the US Library of Congress in 2014. In this video, I'll be analyzing each song and the story behind the album that made Radiohead a household name. After the car crash, the man feels like he's been born again with a fresh perspective on life. Being so close to the grasp of death reminded him of how fragile, but at the same time resilient life can be. How a simple airbag can be the difference between life and death. The simple pleasures that were once overlooked, like the warmth of sunlight, conversations with loved ones, and even the act of breathing itself, gains a new significance. The man becomes more appreciative of life after the event, living every day as if it's his last, because he knows it very well could be. The third song describes a dystopian world rampant with pollution and corruption. The people also don't interact socially, just keeping their heads down instead of acknowledging each other. The people metaphorically drill holes in themselves with things like drugs and alcohol to forget about their issues. Tom talks about aliens abducting him when he's driving and taking him aboard their ship, where he realizes he has more in common with the aliens than humanity. He's finally able to see the world from a bird's eye view, purely as an observer. Instead of being an active participant of life, he's finally free of the many outside influences that clouds and directs our judgment. But when he looks down on everyone he knows, he has a realization. He's just as trapped in the system as everyone else, just as disconnected from the authentic human experience. He realizes that he's just like any other person he knows and hates. He's not as different from them as he thought he was. The aliens offer an illusion of escape, but true freedom is impossible. This realization crushes any hope left in him, leaving him even more isolated than before. Exit music for a film starts with a man trying to wake up his lover from sleep. She had been crying the night before. When touring the US in 1996, Radiohead was contacted by director Baz Luhrmann to make a song for his upcoming movie, Romeo and Juliet. They were given the final 30 minutes of the movie, and they went to work immediately. The song they ended up with was Exit Music, aptly named because it depicts Romeo and Juliet's exit from life. Today, we escape. In the end, Romeo and Juliet poison themselves because they can't be together. When they leave, they know they'll be mocked, but it'll be spineless laugh of fear and weakness, so the joke is on them. The song emphasizes the bittersweet tragedy of the two lovers, but Thom Yorke's take on the play is that it's a naive tragedy.
It's about two people who can't be together and are naive and young enough to believe that they'll go see each other in the next life, so they choose to go there.
Implying that their plan to be together in the afterlife might not have worked in their favor after all, giving an even more sinister undertone to the song. Traditionally, traveling is supposed to be exciting, a chance for new experiences and connections. But in the world of the soulless and mind-numbing 9 to 5, transport back and forth is just a part of a routine, and the destination is always the same. It's only another day at work. This song compares the human race in the modern time to a crushed, twitching bug, and it being called alive. The character hopes that one day they'll grow wings and fly away from all of it, before realizing that their dream is a delusion that'll never come true. They've been let down again and again in life, so why would they expect things to suddenly change for the better? The imagery of growing wings, like a butterfly hatching from a cocoon, represents positive growth and becoming the ideal version of herself. In the modern age, it's been scientifically examined and made grotesque, condemning our use of technology as perverting pure and natural experiences. But this brings up an important dilemma. Advancements in technology is what led to the airbag saving Tom's life. So how do you condemn something that saved your life? The answer to this contradiction is left ambiguous and up to the listener's interpretation. There might come a time when the mundanity of modern life ends and we can all finally grow wings and escape, but until then, all we feel is let down. Karma police implies that in its world, ignorance has become the norm in society. Everyone just believing what they're told to believe and not thinking for themselves. But the narrator sees a man in the street talking intelligently, which is looked down upon in their society. They call the karma police a personification of karma to arrest him. The narrator abuses their power over the karma police to arrest everyone they deem not conforming to the strict rules of society. They see a woman attempting to empower people, which frightens the ruling class. So once again, they call on the karma police to arrest her, snuffing out her worldviews in favor of the correct opinions that the karma police is enforcing. This is what you get when you mess with us. In the narrator's mind, the karma police exist to pass judgment on people who annoy or offend them, which misinterprets the purpose of karma. Because of this, they eventually turn on him, passing judgment on him instead. He begs for mercy, but the police don't give in. This could represent how those who create authoritarian powers can be consumed by them. They're not immune either. But after unleashing his wrath on petty grievances, he has a small moment of clarity. He realizes that he may have took it too far, but the privileged elites who control the karma police can never truly acknowledge the harm they have caused. He still doesn't grasp the seriousness and only sees it as him getting carried away and making a small mistake. Fitter Happier isn't much of a song at all, but instead serves as a sort of interlude and world building for that album. It features a robotic voice listing off points that determine what a perfect life is like, while the creepy piano is played in the background.
Comfortable, not drinking too much, regular exercise at the gym, 3 days a week.
I interpret this song as the higher-ups of the society trying to control the population and keep them content and obedient. When people are unsatisfied with their life, they tend to rebel against the ones in control. But when people are content and at ease, they have no reason to question what they are being told. They're trying to make people more like robots, programmed to make society more productive, less focused on independent thoughts and feelings, and more on following instructions and productivity. They live in a world where even things like the pace of their stride is calculated to maximize efficiency. But as the song progresses, the points get more and more disturbing. The last line of the song has a shift in tone, comparing humans to pigs that are trapped in cages.
In a cage, on antibiotics.
It might have seemed like the points listed were positive, but they're unrealistic expectations for a human. Even though they're trying to keep people satisfied, it's not working. You can't expect society to be free of mistakes, and you can't expect the human to be perfect, because mistakes are how we grow as a person. But the people are powerless to fight against it because the oppressive force of the government doesn't allow for the people to openly change things. Electioneering is one of the only straightforward political songs in Radiohead's catalog, which is clear from just looking at the title. Detailing a politician saying things to get people to vote for him, ultimately not delivering on his promises. They end up just making things worse, or straight up just not doing it at all. The politician lures people by using trickle-down economics. A simple explanation of this thought process is that the rich get large tax cuts in order to stimulate the economy, eventually trickling down to the lower classes as well. The somewhere we will meet is a promise that one day the rich and the lower class will meet in terms of prosperity. But it doesn't make logical sense for one person going forwards to meet with another person going backwards, which leads to the people getting fed up and having a riot against the politician. Climbing up the walls is about paranoia and anxiety. That feeling you get when you feel like there's something in your room at night. It's personified as a shadowy figure, someone who you can't actually see but is always by your side. He comes out at night and crawls up the walls of your mind, overwhelming you. He keeps all your secrets in the basement where no one can find them. But if you go deep into the basement to find it, you'll only ever see his reflection, never its true form. The protagonist, in an act of pure desperation, tries to escape it by climbing up the walls, but it also climbs up the walls to get them. No Surprises is probably the saddest song on the album, even without knowing what the lyrics mean. It's about someone who doesn't think life is worth it anymore. All he sees in life is pain. He hates his job, he doesn't have any meaningful connections, and he feels like he's been abandoned by the world around him. Even when surrounding himself with material objects, he still feels empty inside. He decides to give up on trying to be heard by others and now desires for a quiet life by himself. All these lines in the song are heavily implying that the man is going to take his own life in order to attain a state of eternal silence. He turns off the fire alarms in his apartment and has a handshake with carbon monoxide, surrendering to the silent killer. He begins to get nauseous from the poison, but he's happy that this will finally be the last source of suffering he will have to endure. In the penultimate song of OK Computer, we follow a man who begins to feel like he's above everything and everyone. He develops a sense of self-importance and a bit of an inflated ego, but the narrator's luck changes for the worse. In a cruel change of events, he finds himself in a plane crash, which is where the song's title comes in. Probability isn't concerned whether someone is having a good or bad day, it just happens. But there is hope for him. Sarah, who serves as an extended metaphor of love, pulls him out of the wreckage and rescues him. Even though he thinks he's a superhero to Sarah, even he needs someone to rescue him from time to time. They're faithful companions, helping each other through disaster, as neither one could do without the other in this world. The Tourist is the final track of the album, and it features a man facing extreme stress due to him rushing to fulfill his obligations. He feels like a robot going haywire and about to break down, but no one notices because they're also just like him, rushing through their lives. The truth is that he's like a tourist at life who's moving too fast to truly enjoy and appreciate it. We can judge him all we want, but in a way, we're all tourists on Earth to some degree, and rather than rush through life, trying to do everything, we should take time to appreciate everything. The very last sound we hear on the song, and the album as a whole, is a chime from a triangle. This chime has had multiple interpretations over the years. It could represent the society finally realized the error of its ways, beginning to slow down to properly enjoy life. This could make sense, as Tom has said that the band always tries to put some form of optimism in even their darkest songs. But the more interesting interpretation, in my opinion, is that the chime represents the car crash in the first song. The tourist never learns to slow down and just keeps moving at a rapid pace, leading to the car crash we see in Airbag. This gives a bridge between the start and end of the album and creates a sort of loop. Organ Computer debuted at number 1 in the UK and has gone on to sell at least 7 million copies worldwide, received instant critical acclaim by critics, and was described as a landmark release of great impact and importance. This album is still talked about to this day, and it seems that social isolation and consumerism have only aged better with time. They warned us about what was coming, now all that's left is how or if we respond. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more album analysis like this one, liking the video and subscribing would help a ton.